Okay, welcome back to another episode of Footy Thoughts, where we will be covering all of Game Week 28, both fantasy Premier League as well as some locks we like from this week. We had some technical issues for the last episode, which of course we went 2-0 in our locks, and then both of our FPL players absolutely went off, and one of them still has a midweek game to continue to go off. So hopefully this works out. We get this episode out, get some clips out, and continue winning our bets. So I'm Joey. This is Casey, and we always talk about Tottenham and Everton on this podcast just because those are the two teams that we support. But then we also go about marquee matchups. Not that many this week due to the FA Cup the FA Cup because the Carabao Cup already finished. But the FA Cup games at the final, is it the final or some? No, it would be the quarters this week. Because you have teams like Liverpool City, United, who are blanking. So we'll go on to our first game, which will be the Tottenham-Southampton game.
Blech.
We are fresh off of a win, 3-1 against Forest. Could have been 3-2, but actually Fraser Foster had a big penalty save at the end of the game. I don't think it's fair that it could have been 3-2. I don't think the scoreline really represented it, but we did kind of step off the gas the last 15 minutes. Southampton, I can't remember who they played this last game week, but they had a great win against Leicester. Ever since their coach, was it Lavia that he quoted? Kind of came out in the press and said, he hasn't been impressed by him. He's kind of turned it on. So
Man of the match.
kind of how I spoke about the Forest game, which of course was not able to post. It was a game that you would see on paper. You would expect Tottenham to win and win comfortably. So I'm kind of having that same mindset with this Southampton game. And I can kind of back this, and I keep saying it over and over with data. So hopefully it doesn't let me down. But once Conte's team becomes a one game a week team, we become a little bit not unstoppable, but become a little bit of a wagon, which is kind of the same way we were able to lock in Champions League last year. Once we got knocked out of the FA Cup, knocked out of the Champions League, we were allowed to just focus on one game a week, which helped us out in the long run.
Yeah, Southampton's haven't lost in their past two games. Hashtag
All two
data.
games.
And they've scored one goal in two games, kept two clean sheets. Hashtag data.
Why are you hating on data?
I'm not. It's just lame data is what it is. But the whole Romeo Lavia thing is interesting. He kind of got chewed up in the media. And then he came back and got man of the match performance versus, who was it? Leicester, that's right.
Leicester,
yeah. And then they looked pretty lively against Man United. Unfortunately, you can't really count it because Casemiro got a pretty early red card, so it's hard to tell.
How could I forget who they played this week?
Yeah, that was a fun game. But and there's interesting stats surrounding Casemiro and his cardage in the Premier League versus La Liga. It just shows you how much more aggressive and physical the Premier League can be, versus other leagues across Europe. So, I mean, a preview for this game specifically. I don't really know. I just hope Richie starts again and he shows well and plays out again and earns a spot. That's pretty much my only thoughts on this game.
Well, I think he's prone, or he's going to be able to keep it with him having an assist, drawing the penalty to Kane's second goal.
Disallowed great goal too.
And then also a disallowed great goal by a questionable VAR call. I expect this could be a both teams to score. I'm not betting this game because emotions with Tottenham, but Southampton, granted with the red card advantage, I feel like they had Theo Walcott blowing a bunch of chances towards the end of that game. And even with Man U having a man down, they still create a bunch of chances on their own. So I hope we roll out the exact same lineup we did against Forest, which we created a lot of good chances. We had Ben Davies out in the wing, which didn't clash with Son like Perisic has. So if we keep the same lineup, kind of same ideology, I think we can leave Southampton with the win, which would be great for our top 4 race.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about this game is this screams set pieces to me. So I can see this game being a 1-0 either team or a 1-1 where any goals that are scored come as a result from set pieces.
Gross. We're going to win
I
this
know.
game, not 1-1. Bullshit.
Good luck.
Speaking of 1-0, 1-1 games, we will move on to Casey's Toffees. They are away to Chelsea. I believe it's the 11:30 game, the late game on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear because, they just pieced up Leicester and scored 3 goals. Do you think everything can keep him at bay?
No. No. I think they score on us. I think, and we've been talking about this a lot, and way back when we first started this podcast, I did a whole spiel on Graham Potter and how I thought he was a really good coach. And that, Chelsea went out and splashed, obviously, in the market in January. And I've honestly just been waiting. I've just been waiting for, one, their injuries to start healing up because they had so many injuries. And then 2, for this team, this basically brand new team, to start clicking a little bit more. Because once they do, these players are really good. Once they start clicking, I think they can roll with it. And I can they've got 3 wins in their past 3 games, including knocking out Dortmund in Champions League. They've scored 6 goals along the way. Huh?
Where they looked really good too, like it was a convincing
They did look good.
win.
It was a convincing win, and Dortmund is very good this season. Very, very good this season. So I'm starting to think that this is finally coming full circle where they've got their players back and they're actually developing some chemistry and understanding how Graham Potter wants them to play. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid as an Everton, as a Toffee. I'm very, very afraid for this game. I do think Chelsea wins. I don't think we get 1 or 3 points here. I don't know how that's going to look, but Kai Havertz was it my shout or your shout last week? I think it was your
shout.
It was mine?
It was yours.
Well, Kai Havertz was the shout, and he is no doubt on penalties now. So very key player for FPL. I still stand by that. And I can see him running train on us. So looking bleak.
I'm seeing a Tarkowski 3 bonus point clean sheet.
Tarkowski hat-trick. Everton win 3-0.
Well, I would say there is some optimism, but not really. I think because we joked about earlier, it could be like a 1-1 situation.
Well, that's the thing. That's the tough thing is that so many of these scenarios have popped up where I'm like, all these different things are lining up to where we get beaten. We do not get any points or value from this game at all. And then Everton comes in and plays away to Man City or something, and we take a point from Man City when they're in like the form of their lives or something like. Mm-hmm. It's weird. The way Everton plays top 4, top 6 teams who are in good form, especially, like, it's just weird. You can't predict it. And so I say this every time. I feel very nervous about this game, but somehow Everton is going to pull some shit out of their ass. We'll see.
Okay, and with that, we'll move on to the final game we will preview this week. We usually do 4, but there's not that many exciting matchups besides the ones that we have already spoke about. The final game will be Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, the lone game on Sunday. Arsenal at home, fresh off of another convincing win against Fulham, which I don't know if you bet it, but was a classic +1 home dog bet, and it crashed and burned immediately. We've got Trossard starting kind of that false 9 role.
Which has been very good, by the way. Very, very good. He's got 4... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you got it. 4 assists and what?
4 assists in 2.5 games that he's played in that spot. He's dishing them out left and right when he's in that central spot.
It'll be interesting because with Trossard, we've seen Martinelli kind of come back to life. When Nketiah was starting, we didn't really see Martinelli kind of lead that line in terms of the first run kind of penetrating the center backs. It'll be interesting to see when Jesus comes back. I mean, Martinelli also thrived when he was there, but also how Arteta manages Trossard and Jesus together. Because even with Jesus coming back, like, I mean, if they're clicking and Trossard's kind of that key, kind of creating those chances for them, it'll be hard to see Jesus kind of immediately slot back in. But then
Also,
again,
don't rush him back from injury too. It's a win-win for everyone.
yeah, they
Trossard's
were
in form. Yeah,
it was a big signing for them, and he might even get these Europa League minutes too. So
yeah.
I don't know. Crystal Palace hasn't scored a goal, I believe, in this calendar year. I think no, that's not true.
No,
that's
they
not
have.
true. It was
But
something.
they haven't scored more than 2 goals in one game.
What did I see
since December?
They haven't won. They haven't won in this calendar.
They also
year.
haven't won.
That's what
That's true as well. Yeah,
yeah, because they scored
ton
against
of draws.
Brentford, right?
Yeah,
But they're keeping these. I mean, it's the last 5 games, 2 goals or less in every game, and they're playing away. But it's hard to see. I don't think Arsenal have a midweek game. Oh, they do. They play Sporting at home on Thursday, so maybe we see some rotation. Maybe not. The data says always #data that Palace or this game should have some sort of under appeal to it. The way Crystal Palace is not allowed too many goals, but Arsenal are an absolute wagon, and this should be an easy kind of steamroll win for them.
Yeah.
Okay, that will be our game previews for game week 28. Again,
sneaky little pivot here to another game preview. I'm just now seeing that Manchester City hosts Burnley on Saturday for the quarterfinal of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is fun.
Vincent Kompany.
That is fun. Dude, Vincent Kompany's Burnley is raw this year. They're so good. That's a fun game. I will be tuning into that for sure.
Okay,
sorry, so we kind of a side note.
No, you're good because it is a fun game. We will be switching over to our FPL player spotlight. We've started this about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we will bring up a player that we think is worth bringing in, and then especially if you're in FPL, you know there's a big double game week coming up in 29. So, and both of these players that we have will be kind of advantageous to kind of not only have some sort of differential for your rank if they do get returns, but also they have some favorable fixtures coming up. So I will start. I will go with James Maddison, which the name carries a bunch of weight, but he's still only 5.9% owned in FPL. They have Brentford away this game week, and then they have a double in 29 with Palace away and then Aston Villa at home. So 3 teams really in the middle, if not the bottom half of the table. Brentford are giving up XG left and right. We just mentioned Crystal Palace is an under kind of team, but Leicester themselves have been generating enough XG on their own, no matter their opponents. They had almost 3 against Chelsea. I think they had 2.5 to be exact, and then a 1.9 against Southampton, even though they were held goalless. So James Maddison is my FPL player spotlight.
I like it. Mine's going to be a little bit more obscure. Dango Autara for Bournemouth. I normally wouldn't recommend anybody buy a Bournemouth player at any point ever in the season. But Bournemouth have actually been very interesting since January. They made some good signings, including Dango Autara. He is a winger. He's a 5.0 mid, I believe, listed on the fantasy game. And he has been the focal point of their attack. There's been a couple other guys like Billing who have kind of stepped up and been scoring some goals as of recent, but the large majority of these big chances created by Bournemouth have been from Dango Autara. He was the best player at his previous club, Lorient, in France, and he is 21 years old. He's hungry. He has not scored his first goal for Bournemouth yet. They do have a double coming up in 29 or 30? In 29?
29. Both home games against Fulham and Brighton as well.
Yeah, if you need that, I mean, we know players like Matoma have a blank, and a lot of other decent 5.0 range type of midfielders are not going to be available for this game week, and Bournemouth have a double, and they're both at home. I like Dango Autara, 5.0 mid, just for this week mostly.
And a lot of their players or FPL players have Andreas Pereira too, who also blanks and kind of not has fallen off the map, but he's a 4.5 mid, kind of serving that fifth midfield spot for a reason. But Atara could be a good differential, especially with him having a game in 28 and then a double in 29.
0.0% owned. So
Big
book
thing,
that one.
0.0. Okay, and now what we mainly wanted to talk about, especially with our big technical difficulties, and I need to address something first. I did lose my over in the Aston Villa Crystal Palace game that saw a VAR goal taken, or a VAR take a goal away, as well as a first half goal, but it still ended 1-0. But this following weekend, or this last weekend, Casey and I went 2-0, increasing our overall record to 9-3. We didn't have the bets out. They don't want to count it, but we're going to keep track of every bet we made. I had the Crystal Palace plus 1.5 against City. They ended up losing only 1-0 in that game. And then Casey had Leeds versus Brighton, both teams to score yes. So
2-2, baby.
It didn't happen. We didn't, quote unquote, preview them and show them on TikTok, whatever. But we're going to update the record. We did go 2-0, and hopefully ball don't lie. We'll go 2-0 again this week. So to start our locks, I will begin. I am taking the Casey route with the both teams to score yes, but I will be taking it in the Forest Newcastle game at -102. Newcastle is coming back to life. I don't really have a data on them because their past few games have been terrible. A few 2-0 losses to teams like City and Liverpool. But Bruno was back for those games, so I wouldn't say they missed him exactly, but they are starting to see goals from other players besides like Callum Wilson. They've got Isaac, however you say it, scoring. Isak. And you got Almiron performing again.
Oh, but, dude, did you see the clip of his face after he scored the goal, his celebration? He's literally, he was hugging someone from the sideline, and he was just like,
he's probably excited
ever.
He's probably finally excited to score.
I mean, it was a lit goal, so.
But yes, Forest, since the restart, have had 5 Premier League home games, and they've scored in every one of their home games so far. So there's a little bit of my data, my reasoning why. They were abysmal.
Brennan Johnson ATS.
Yeah, they were abysmal against Tottenham, but they had a goal and they had a penalty chance. So both teams to score yes in the Forest Newcastle game at -102.
It's interesting. We both have a both teams to score bet here. So mine was in same day, I believe, same time. So it's going to be a fun one. Brentford Leicester.
Mine's on Friday, I think.
Oh, yours is the Friday game. That's right.
Yeah.
Brentford Leicester BTTS. I mean, if you want some data, BTTS, they've only matched up 4 times in their recent history, and 3 of those 4 have hit BTTS. The other one was a cup game. So, lots of goals here. James Maddison is really the key for that, because when he's not in this Leicester team, goodbye goals for Leicester. So, BTTS in Brentford Leicester. Hopefully it can be a fun game.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we both cash those. Unfortunately, they won't be on the same day, so we won't have the same day parlay to hit. But as always, we encourage you guys to make a third pick yourself, parlay it with our picks, and hopefully cash a nice little Saturday morning or Sunday morning.
Nice little 5-Xer.
Yeah, something slight. So short episode this week, again, because there's only a few amount of games. As I mentioned earlier, hopefully we go 2-0 to continue our good streak. And for our 10s and 20s of viewers, like I always say, please comment, please subscribe, follow on TikTok if you're watching on TikTok.
Share with your mom. If your mom's into soccer, you're trying to get your mom into soccer, share it with her. We'll see how that goes.
Sure.
Whatever you need to do.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. This was Game Week 28 preview.